Monday, we're in the Dukascopy studio, and joining me after the Easter break is Jean-François Owczarczak to discuss some of the most traded currency pairs. Jean-François, thank you for coming in once again.
Thank you for having me, Monica.
No problem. Now, as we embrace the trading week, the question seems to be about the non-farm payrolls, whether or not impact will be growth, fear and risk aversion, or whether it will be QE-inspired risk buying. What is your take on market sentiment at the moment, though?
Okay, well, we're going to go into the graphics. We're back on our Fingraphs homepage, and we're going to go into the Dukascopy directory. Here we go. Now with live prices provided by Dukascopy, and we're going to go into the dollar rates and focus on our hourly charts and the mosaic. Now here you have all currency pairs against the dollar, quoted against the dollar here and in the direction of the dollar, depending on the currency pairs. And what we can see, there has been quite a move on the non-farm payrolls, and the euro has initiated a correction up. Now we can see that, and let's focus on the euro, so that we were indeed in quite a lot of exaggeration here. Our risk indicator was in the green, and our envelopes were touching each other. Now, if we take a longer term view and focus on the weekly and the daily here, what we could see is that our weekly chart, which was a bit in the middle of a range, has tilted itself back into a bear trend, and that its targets are showing down targets below the 120 mark. Just want to emphasize that this is based on historical volatility. We all know that the 120 mark is crucial, and that we will need to pass that level before considering anything else. Okay. But what is important is that we're in a bear trend again here. The risk indicator doesn't tell us much, it's in the middle of the range. On the daily, we have a bit more of a clearer view. We're still within this correction, which started about 2 months ago. And if we focus on the daily here, we could see that the correction range could still have a few more weeks to go. We've reached the initial target, and we had a 127.50 here. We briefly went below it last week. And so we've reached an initial potential, and hence the reaction up. But from a timing perspective, we would probably expect more retests of this zone down here. Now, let's focus out and focus on the hourly. Well, we've had this strong exaggeration, this very, very quick bounce. We're slowly getting into a stress zone here and into the red zone on our risk index. This is probably an initial test. It probably has a bit more to go into it over the next week or so, probably about one figure. But in order to analyze this in more detail, let's go to the trader's view.
Okay.
So, as you see here, we were on the investor's view, weekly, daily, hourly, and now let's focus on the trader's view. So the trader's view shows a 60-minute, a 15-minute, and a 4-minute. And what we can see here is that on the very short term, we're quite well priced on the 15 minutes. The 4 minutes still moving up, probably has a tiny bit more potential, but also the risk index is also in the red here. Just here on the 60 minute, well, there's probably a bit more potential to go. We're in an initial red zone, but the trend is quite strong. There's not that much of a stress here. So what we believe is that we probably have another day or so in this current move, probably half a figure, more figure, and then we will need to watch out again. Okay. And that put in the perspective that we still believe that this correction down is still underway. And so a bit more to go here, but from mid-end of week, we should be in a risk-reward situation where we should watch out on the euro again.
Okay. Now, we have, looking at the graphics here, we have 1, 2 and 3 box. Perhaps you could walk us through just what exactly these are highlighting on.
Well, what we wanted to show here is a very quick view over 3 times horizons. And so here you have a summary of these 3 graphics, meaning that the long term is the one square here, which encompasses the whole time horizon. The 2 view, which is here, puts into perspective what the daily is in comparison to the weekly. And then the 3 box here is to put the hourly into perspective, and also shows us that what we're looking at here is just a very short portion of this long-term trend. What we're trying to do here is to get a very quick view of the trend. So very quickly, as soon as you focus on a graphic, you could see, well, bear market long-term, bear market, or at least correction down over the medium term, and bull market reaction up over the short term. And in one flick, you could have a very quick view of it.
Does make it very easy to digest. Now, if we look at the pound against the euro.
We'd go back to our mosaic,
okay,
where we have all the pairs.
Now, the UK currency has been making gains against the euro amid renewed concern about the Eurozone in general. It seems likely to stem aggressive sterling selling as we move on, as a possibility of defensive inflows into the pound. What is your take, and what are the charts showing us at the moment?
Well, we'll first focus on pound US dollar to make parallel with what we saw in the euro.
Okay.
And we're still moving lower on the pound against the dollar over the long term, bear market on the weekly. On the daily, we're still in a bear market. There's still some way to go in terms of timing, in terms of a potential. Well, we dented the initial potential here, but we would have, the volatility would imply potential towards the 145 level over the next 2 months. Shorter term, well, we did have an exaggeration here on the envelopes. We were in the green here on the oscillator, and hence the reaction up. This reaction up doesn't seem quite over yet at the moment if we focus on the hourly. And if we look at the hourly here, well, we're moving higher. We did have a bit of a, last time I was here was around here, and we had just made it above the corrective targets. We thought that it would probably work its way through a bit, which it did. And now it seems that this correction up has re-initiated, and that also here, there's probably another figure or so to go, but the risk is already quite high. And so watch out in a couple of days. We still have a bit more to go, but it's probably close to be finished. And let's look at the trader's view. And what we see is that the trader's view is moving up. Envelopes are quite, let's focus on it. Envelopes are heading up quite strongly. Initial stress here, initial risk index is quite high, but there's a bit more to go. So also here, there's probably a day or so to go before it becomes a negative risk reward again. And on the shorter term, well, we're in the correction down at the moment on the 15 minutes, which for the time being has been quite subdued, and the 4 minutes has almost reached an oversold position in this correction down. So we would believe that there's probably a bit more to go here, and then watch out again. All this in the perspective of a long term, which is still negative.
Still negative on the pound dollar. Okay.
I think what was probably interesting to have a look at also, in light of what happened last week, and on further easing from the Japanese central bank, is dollar yen. And dollar yen, as we previously said, is in an uptrend, had reached initial points of stress on the daily, an initial correction down. We believe that the uptrend on the dollar would resume against the yen, and that's what happened in quite an aggressive way, actually. And we could see the exaggeration that we had here last week on the envelopes and on the risk index. Looking at the shorter term view, i.e. the trader's view, well, what we see here, there's probably a bit more to go here in terms of time, similar to what we saw in the other currencies. Here, also a bit more short term, and the correction down is pretty subdued. So if we take current trends on euro dollar, on pound, dollar, and on the yen, the current trend probably has a bit more to go into it, but towards mids this week, you should start to watch out again.
Jean-François, thank you very much for your time today. A lot of good pointers for our viewers. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. Well, that's all from Jean-François and myself. Don't forget you can keep up to date with the very latest updates of all the stats by clicking back to the website. Bye for now.